Welcome back to the Midlife Reinvention podcast. Today's conversation is one I think you will really resonate deeply with so many of you who are navigating life and career transitions and who may be asking bigger questions like, who am I now? What is this season of life asking of me? And how do I learn to trust myself more deeply? My guest today is Gail Harris. Gail is a certified ghostwriter specializing in women's memoirs, and she's an award-winning women's memoirist. She's also the founder of Golden Ghostwriting and the author of Your Heart Knows the Answer, How to Trust Yourself and Make the Choices That Are Right for You. What really stood out for me about Gail is that while she helps women bring their stories to life, her work goes much deeper than writing. She sees storytelling as a path to healing, self-trust, and transformation, which is something I know many of you will connect with. So welcome to the show, Gail. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Been looking forward to this, Kavita. Thank you.
Yes, maybe you could share. Yeah, I understand you went from copywriting to living in a yoga ashram and to writing your own book. And then you became a specialized or certified ghostwriter. And you're specializing in, as I said in the introduction, helping women write their memoirs. So tell us a little bit about that and what are some of the key turning points perhaps and that led you to where you are and that help you kind of go through this path of yours.
Sure. I think when you gave me some things to think about, I told you I thought that this was a really fascinating question. And I realized why. And it's because when I was thinking about the different turning points, it made me realize, I think also because I'm a memoirist, I think about themes, and I really saw a theme, like what would be the narrative arc in my memoir if I was doing that. So what I realized that all those turning points occurred because of a deep knowing that I have inside to trust myself and trust my spiritual path. And that knowing has been the impetus of my life to this very day. And it continues to deepen on a regular basis. And my intent to trust my life's unfolding, it's at the core of my being. And so that said, I was thinking about, from a copywriter to a yoga ashram. And the turning point there was that was a time in my life, I was in my early 30s, and that was a time when I realized when my spiritual path actually became a conscious choice, is something that I was choosing now. I was always very spiritual, I would say that, but a particular incident happened, a whole bunch of things happened, but for example, a friend of mine's husband, we were just talking one day, and he said, things are not what they seem, and there's more to life than meets the eye. And it's not like I hadn't heard that before, but there was something about hearing that then
Mhm.
where it was like a click happened in me, and it was like from now on, like my life is about understanding what's beneath the surface, like what it's more than it seems.
Mhm.
And so I started doing yoga and meditation at that time, conscious choice to do yoga and meditation. And I started practicing Kripalu yoga. Kripalu ashram, where I ended up, is in Lenox, Massachusetts. And so the yoga teacher in my neighborhood, I was living in Manhattan on the Upper East Side, and so she was a Kripalu yoga teacher. And so I decided to go visit Kripalu for the weekend. And the spiritual teacher there, the founder of the ashram, Gurudev, that's what we called him, he had mentioned that term witness consciousness. I had never heard the term before, but it's basically, for people who don't know, it means that we observe who we are. In other words, we observe life. And I guess it's kind of we're not who we think we are. We're not our thoughts, or we're not our emotions. And when I heard that term, it was like even a deeper click. I want that. And I was working for McGraw-Hill at the time as a copywriter in their creative services department, and they were going through some changes at the time. And I convinced them to lay me off. And I moved into the yoga ashram. And I was there for about 2 years. And it was a
Wow.
really, yeah, it was a really, really diving into my spiritual journey. It was a beautiful
Hmm.
experience.
Hmm. Wow, interesting. So it's interesting how you had that one phrase from the friend and that kind of triggered something in you. And then you said your spiritual path became your conscious path and then the whole witness consciousness theme. Yeah, it's interesting how you actually really followed that guide or that instinct you had to go from
Yeah.
go
But,
from it sounds like a corporate kind of career in New York to
right.
following your spiritual path, which is really, really amazing. So, and you said that that's deep, your narrative arc about that deep knowing and intent to trust yourself. And so I guess that follows in maybe your book that you wrote. It's called Your Heart
Mhm.
Knows the Answer. So that kind of sounds like it's similar to what you just said. And so,
Oh,
right.
do you like that, huh?
Yeah.
Well, what happened was, yeah, so I was in the ashram for about 2 years. And then
Yeah.
when I moved out, I met my husband at the time, and I was a writer my whole life, but I never thought about writing a book. I never thought I had a book in me at all. It was just not one of those things like, oh, someday, not at all. And then after I moved out of the ashram, though, I realized that I had a book inside of me that I could not write. It's like I had to
Mm,
do it. You know, that saying we teach what we need to learn. It really was that way for me. And I think based on my own trauma that I had when I was 14, my parents had just like a horrific divorce, and it destroyed me on some level. And so because of that, in a sense, I lost my self-trust. It's like I always had a very deep sense of connecting with my inner knowing, but that made me lose it. But I mean, in hindsight, I could look back now and I see that was like my trauma, the big trauma of my life. And in hindsight, I see now that it was really the impetus for my spiritual path. We want to stop suffering. I think that's what happens with all of us. So this book was just like I had to write it, and I taught myself how. I had never written a book before. A book is I was a writer my whole life, but a book, that's a very different animal, than
hmm hmm
a brochure, an ad. And I just devoured books, spiritual books, self-help books. And
hmm
I wrote this book. It was just like pouring out of me. I had to write it, and I was fortunate. I had a literary agent that really liked it, and she found a publisher for me. And it was interesting because one thing leads to the next. It's like I kind of say it's like following the breadcrumbs. But this
hmm
literary agent, it turned out that she was a very, very spiritual woman. I mean, no surprise because she was drawn to this book. And it turned out that she introduced me to a spiritual guide that she had. And then I started working with him one on one, and that was really great. And then the next, you said becoming a certified ghostwriter. So a lot happened between writing the book and getting
hmm
to that point. After I wrote the book, which really teaches women how to connect into their own inner knowing. There was a lot of I shared a lot of my own personal story in there. And so
hmm
after I was done with that book, I got really clear. It was like, okay, I have to help, I have to help women tell their stories. I think I just really got the universal healing nature of storytelling. And like to this day, it's so true, but meaning that it's the universal healing nature of storytelling is that it's healing when we tell our story, but it's also healing for the reader. I mean,
hmm
I can't tell, all I read is memoirs. I can't read when I'm actually writing a project, but the minute I'm done, I'm reading memoirs because I learned so much.
hmm
I belong to this
Yeah.
like a memoir circle, and there was a quote that they just said last week: "Writing is breathing in, and reading is breathing out." It's
Mm,
like
how
that's the
nice.
healing nature of storytelling. So I
Yeah,
wrote a book.
I was going to ask you about that because your work is really about healing, right? And so tell me about that. Like, how does storytelling, I mean, you've kind of touched on it, but how does that really help, let's say, a woman who's maybe had some painful transitions or trying to reconnect with themselves. How does writing fit into that kind of
Yeah. Well,
healing process?
I've seen some incredible things. I really have. For a context, I work with authors who, in addition to any professional goals they may have, they see writing their memoir as a way to heal. They want to heal and
Hmm.
share what they've learned about themselves and life, and possibly help others, that they've done enough self-reflection to have arrived at the point where they know they have a powerful story inside and they're ready to claim it and start writing. And so that said, a project that I just finished working with an author, but this author, she has given me permission to share whatever I care to share about her story. So there was sexual abuse in this story. She was sexually abused by her grandfather when she was 4 and 5 years old. And she hadn't originally even told me about that when we started working. We had a plan and everything. I didn't even know about that. And like 3 weeks in, she told me this, and it was very clear that this became a major, like the major thread of her story, and everything else had to kind of work around that. And there was plenty, there was enough before we had
Hmm.
this. And it was just horrendous, the things that she was telling me. But like I had my agenda and
Hmm.
I'm listening to her, and it just like the most horrific things like that happened to this woman. It was just incredible. But I just wanted to keep the process moving forward. Like
Hmm.
I was dying inside, but I had my
Hmm.
agenda. And so we went on, we went on, we went on. And then finally, I guess maybe I was waiting for the right time or the right timing. I guess there's timing for things. But then there was one day, I guess it was maybe like 4 months in or something. And I lost it. I couldn't. And I just told her, like, I am just so, so sorry for what happened. I'm hysterical. I mean, I am sobbing. And she was kind of stoic a bit. That's part of her story, actually, how she learned how to manage and cope and not feel certain things. And I'm sobbing, and she kind of like wipes a little tear away, and she just looks at me and she says, "You're healing me. You're healing me. You're healing me. My whole life, all I ever wanted was to be seen." And it's interesting because she has a beautiful husband who was by her side for years and years. She had a lot of physical, I mean, this woman has the most difficult life I've ever heard in my life. It's just so many things. And it's not that her husband wasn't there for her.
Hmm.
I mean, she would say, be dead without Joe. But there's something very different when
Hmm.
you're talking to another woman and you're claiming your life and you're claiming your moments, these devastating moments. And I'll never forget that day as long as I live. I don't think she will either. I mean, it certainly informed the
Hmm.
story, but it was
Wow.
amazing.
That sounds
Yeah,
transformative for both you and her. And
it is.
I
I
think,
I I heal so much
yeah, and then I
differently.
was going to ask you this whole memoir process is not just a process of writing a book. It's where you're working very deeply with your clients, and
Very
there's
deeply.
profound
Yeah.
healing there, right? And like you said, she may have had other people in her life where she's told the story, but you actually made her feel heard and seen, which is so important.
Yeah.
So, Gail,
I'll never forget that.
yeah, I can imagine how that, and I see that, I feel that way sometimes, even when I'm coaching women, when there's like
Yeah,
when there's
absolutely.
major realizations that kind of have been buried inside, and it's like, aha, and it's like tears, there's like, oh my God, I never even realized that was inside of me. So
You're talking about
I guess,
yourself personally
yes. Well,
or
no, that my
yes,
clients, and then when they have that realization, there's a lot of tears. And then, of course, it's like, oh my God, I've just helped this person feel seen. I feel heard. So
it's
it's
so
similar, but
healing.
but it's in a different way, right? In terms of you
Right, but it
helping them
is
write.
similar.
Yes, it
And
is. I
and
actually
it
just created that connection there. Yeah.
yeah, and it's similar also in the sense that all of us are so much more alike than different in that our life lessons overlap. So
Mm-hmm.
even what I do for a living, what you do for a living, it's different, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also similar. Like
Mm-hmm. It is. It
I
is.
could,
I think it's really about giving people and especially women the time and space to express themselves, to be heard, right?
yeah.
And to have somebody who understands and just listens, right, as well. So,
Yeah, of course, when you're putting it on a page, you're
yes,
really claiming it.
you're really claiming
There's
it.
another aspect to it, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yes,
It's of
yes,
course,
yes.
absolutely.
So, yeah, like I know that many of the women who are listening to this podcast are going through some type of transition. Maybe they're facing a career change, or they may have kids might have left home. They're going through a transition in their relationships or health or whatever. And they might be feeling very overwhelmed or fearful or doubtful about their next steps. So you talked a little bit about that inner wisdom. So how can a person tell the difference between this voice of fear, and the voice of their inner wisdom? That how can they listen to the inner wisdom, I guess, over the fear? It comes up a lot because sometimes the voices in our head overtake the the truth of what we actually should be
Oh, of
listening to.
course. I really feel that is the life journey that so we don't listen to that inner knowing. We're so tuned into our thoughts and emotions, and especially women, we're taught, don't trust yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's like what I would say, like just like take a breath wherever you are, and then like connect with that part of you that knows that listening for and trusting your heart, your inner wisdom, that's your highest intent, that like without making that your pole star, we're
Mm-hmm.
done. You know what I mean? And like, so it's like you have to just connect with that place that will help you to take the next step. I think pole star is a good word for it, because if it's not, we're going to be going all over the place, and we're going to be listening to other people more than ourselves. And we're not going to be making good choices if we don't know what we really want in our
Mm-hmm.
lives. I mean,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for me, this knowing, it really has evolved over the years, like from when I first wrote that book. Like when I first, like now I feel like I've been doing this inner work for so long that I just know that I have to not pay attention to my thoughts and my emotions, my psyche. It's still very hard to do at times. But at the beginning, and this is what I actually teach in the book, it's like learn to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, I mean, that's like the first step, like understand the difference between the voice of your heart or your inner knowing and
Mm-hmm.
those thoughts and feelings, and ultimately know that they are not you. I mean, this is my spiritual perspective. I'm not trying to like prescribe anything here. I'm just sharing what I've learned
Yes.
is that the true part of me, my soul, my spirit, whatever word you want to use for it, knows that I am not what happens to me. I am not what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling, although it gets really confusing at times,
Mm-hmm.
that I am the one that's experiencing the grief or the
Mm-hmm.
trauma or the memories, but it's not who I am. It's not who I
Mm-hmm.
am. And it's like the biggest distinction, because we think that voice inside us, it's so strong, and it's got a lot of opinions based on our own personal experiences. And then we meet other people who have had completely different experiences. So their mind and thoughts are saying completely different things. That's why there are all these wars. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's happening. But we have to learn how to take this step back to know that we are not our psyche. And it is a lifetime journey. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
is. It's
Mm-hmm.
like we have to practice. I mean, we practice the piano. We
Mm-hmm.
practice tennis, whatever it is we want to learn. We'll go to school, we want to become a doctor or a therapist, whatever we want to do. We go to class because we know we have to. Well, it's the same thing with learning
Mm-hmm.
how to distinguish between our thoughts and emotions and who we really are. It takes practice, a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
why shouldn't it? You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing I would say to somebody else is knowing that practicing this and getting good at it is more important than anything else and make
Yes.
time for other things.
Yes. I love that because it's I think it's what you said earlier. It's just like witness what you're witnessing it.
Yes, the
You know,
witness consciousness.
the
See,
witness
I knew all
conscious.
the way back then, but I'm in
Yes.
a very different place than I am. That
Yes.
was how many years ago? But it takes practice and it's deepening and deepening and
Mm-hmm.
deepening. And
Yes, it's just kind of maybe turning to the actual the writing process and helping women with their memoirs and writing their stories. So you've described your work as helping women find the gold in their story. So tell me about that. What do you actually mean by that, and how can someone begin to recognize that deeper meaning that of what they've lived through and that it is really gold?
yeah, well, actually, it's funny because when I said that, I meant something else, but it could be applied to what you're saying. But when I find the gold in a story, I was actually referring to a process as the ghostwriter, finding what will make that author's manuscript stand out among the others, her book in the same memoir category, like, say, trauma. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of sexual abuse out there. Like, I mean, it pains me to say it, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like, how many books are about that? And so finding the gold is, for me, as a ghostwriter, what is unique in this story that's different than others? And then I find, like, right to that difference, make that the narrative arc and the structure. And by the way, the name of my company, Golden Ghostwriting, is based on that, finding the gold in the story. And I have
Mm-hmm.
found that this is what makes a book compelling and
Mm-hmm.
marketable. And this is also what taps into the universal healing nature of storytelling. As I said,
Mm-hmm.
that we each of us have different experiences, but it's our self-reflection and what we learned about it. That's when the reader says, yeah, me too. I'm learning something about myself here, even though
Mm-hmm.
her experiences are different than yours. I believe we're all here to heal. And this
Mm-hmm.
is the power of memoir. I mean, but
Mm-hmm.
as I said, that said, that there's a lot of memoirs out there. So what will make yours
Mm-hmm.
most compelling? And that's what I
Yeah.
mean by finding the
Mm-hmm.
gold. In terms of the actual storytelling, another process that I use, which I think might also answer your question, is when I'm interviewing somebody, we're going through the interviewing process, I let the story lead and
Mm-hmm.
take us where it needs to go. And what I mean by that is a certain kind of listening that really deepens the probe for that self-reflection, because I've seen it. The deeper we go, the more universal our story. One of my gifts, but
Mm-hmm.
like, and the story, it writes itself in a way. As a matter of fact, I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm talking to somebody and we're seeing if it's going to be a good fit to work together, if they have a tight deadline, I know I tell them it's probably best that you work with a different ghostwriter, because to me, that's not letting the story lead. And I'm just not the
Mm-hmm.
right person. There's a million ghostwriters. I mean, there's a lot of ghostwriters out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the story reveals itself to
Mm-hmm.
the author and to me as we dive in and
Mm-hmm.
see, well, what's going on another level, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. And there's always, when I start with somebody, they've always, as I said, have done enough. They've reached the point where they know they have a powerful story in there and they're ready to claim it and start running. But there's always more. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're writing your own memoir, it's just something really to pay attention to, or talk to
Mm-hmm.
somebody else
Mm-hmm.
that has, because I function kind of as I help an author take a step back and help her possibly connect the dots in ways she may not have seen
Mm,
before. I function
right.
as kind of like an objective observer or witness, as you
Mm-hmm.
will, if you
Interesting.
will.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's more. And that's
Yeah.
what to me makes the story rich.
I love that. I love that when what you said the deeper we go, the more universal the story, which is just kind of made me think one of the reasons I even you're helping the women through the writing process and uncovering their stories. And it's kind of the reason I do this podcast a lot of times is interviewing women and understanding their stories so that the listener can relate their own experiences to what they're hearing, right?
Well, I think that's why I liked your question so much. You're exactly right. That's why
Yeah,
I was so drawn to it because you were going somewhere with me. And that's
yeah,
what I do. I go,
right, right. Yeah, because it's about the listening too, and it's about really understanding, like, why does a person do this? What kind of experiences have they led in their life, which leads them to this? And so I find that very fascinating. And there's one thing that I hear a lot from clients, and you might hear as well, is that is hesitation. So many women who are listening may feel that, oh yes, I have a story inside. I'd love to write a book. Or they could have started writing the book and then it's shelved.
yeah,
And then because they say to themselves, this imposter syndrome, kind of like, who would care? No
of
one's gonna,
course.
no one's gonna read it. I'm not good enough to write it, firstly. And so it's all those fears. We talked a little bit about it, but what would you say to someone who feels like called to share a story, but is really holding back from sharing it?
Yeah, well, what the first thing I would say is ask yourself which part of yourself is saying these things. Because that's the healing right there, in a way. Is this the part that values you for who you are? And then also ask yourself why you feel called to share your story and if you'll have any regrets if you don't do it.
Mm,
One thing I thought which might be appropriate to share here is why do women write their memoirs? People often ask me that on podcasts, and I think it's sort of applicable here, but it's many reasons. As I said before, professionally, it is a powerful marketing tool. I mean, because the trust when you share so intimately, that you really cultivate trust to expand that like influence and reputation. People really get to know you. And then personally, well, there's legacy memoir, which are basically written for the author's family.
hmm
But as I said before, the women that I come across, they see writing their memoir as a way to heal. They've done enough self reflection that they're ready to go and want to possibly help others. I see that a lot. So we write
Mm,
out of a desire to help others. And that itself is healing. And I think
sure.
we were kind of saying that before, what we
hmm
were talking about. Nowadays, women are claiming their power. We're claiming our stories. So we write to get our voice out there, to share our story and see our truth validated in print.
Yeah. Claiming our power. Yes. I love that. So I'm just gonna see if I got, yeah, what you said is that firstly, ask yourself which part of yourself is actually saying those things. And then
Yeah.
why do you feel called? And then so some examples of why women would write their memoirs is a marketing tool, as legacy, desire to help others, and claiming their power. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting. You see really famous people, for example, writing their memoirs, and people are really interested in reading them because like they want to know all the details. But I can see that a person like if, for example, even me, if I was just thinking, okay, well, I want to write my memoir, but I don't know who cares about me, right? Or who would really be interested. So it is that voice that's telling us that, right? Whereas it's like, well,
We
why do
all
you want to
have it.
write it? Why do you want to
Right.
write it? Well, I think I want to write it so that people will learn from my story. So my desire would be the reason I would do it is so to help others. So that was one of the reasons you shared. So that's interesting.
Yeah. And you never know, like once you start,
Hmm. What comes up?
what's going to come. I
Yeah.
mean, this last book went in such a completely different direction than we had originally thought. And
Yeah. Yeah.
another memoir that I wrote, the same thing. It's a scary process also, I'll say. There's because of the writing, and then of course there's the publishing, which is
Hmm.
another whole experience. So like ask yourself if this is like, do I really want to do this for the gift of having the experience, whatever it brings? And also, do you want to make your decision based on fear or clarity? Maybe you need to talk to whoever it is, talk to them and really get the lowdown. What,
Hmm.
how much is this going to cost? And how long is it going to take? And get the facts, ma'am, get the facts and get clear on your own calling and trust your heart and see what happens. It's a tremendous decision to
It
actually
is.
do
Yeah. I
it.
mean, even the
Yeah.
practical things you have to think about because, yeah, I mean, it's also time and it's the money and it's nice to have somebody like you who can walk them through this process and help them through it. This maybe the last question is that when someone is kind of in this middle of this transition phase that we're in and
Mm.
kind of looking and seeing, wanting to understand who she is, what would you leave a woman with who to listen more closely to her own heart and her own inner voice, I guess. How do we do that?
Yeah, I guess I probably said it already, but just take in a breath and connect with that part of you that knows, that listening for and trusting your heart, that's going to inform your actions, that that's your highest intent, because what kind of life do you want to have? And it's like follow the breadcrumbs,
Mm.
feel what, connect to what your heart is calling you and make a step. And it's like what you do with your clients too. I mean, I could see somebody coming to you and saying, I want to write a book, I want to write my memoir, but I feel this, I'm not sure. It's you
Well,
probably
I'll
have a
say
lot
go
of
to
great
Gail Harris.
answers.
Go to Gail Harris.
I'm sure you do
Yes.
great work with women, but it is
Yeah, it's
similar.
very
I mean,
fulfilling. It is very fulfilling because whether it's writing a book or starting a business or leaving, retiring or going to the next level where all these doubts and fears come in, it's all kind of similar. It's those next steps that we take that often our fears stop us. But it's if you listen to your heart, is what I'm getting at this kind of whole theme is that the gold there and that will
mhm.
shine. And I love that question is what kind of life do you want to have? It's a very simple question, but it's a very complicated one at the same time, right?
What's your
So
pole star?
what's your pole star? Yeah, wonderful.
What are you going to make your decisions based on? You're going to make it
Exactly.
based on not upsetting other people,
Mm,
playing small. There's a million quotes out there.
yeah. Yes. Well, that's so great. I mean, I think we can talk for a long time, but really you've given us a lot of great insights into what memoir writing, what it can do for a person and how much it can reveal and heal. So I really appreciate that. And so maybe you can kind of tell us where people can find you and what the process is if somebody is interested
Oh,
in writing their
sure.
memoir and how we can find you.
Sure. Well, you can find me at my website, which is goldenghostwriting.com, and there you could schedule a consultation to talk about your project and see if this would be a good fit. People could find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the only platform I use at this point. I mean, I have my professional thing on Facebook, but it doesn't work for me. So
Hmm.
also on LinkedIn, you could message me there.
Wonderful.
I do this because this is my dharma. You know what I mean? This is
Hmm.
like what I
Hmm.
do. And
Hmm.
it can't be rushed. I
Can't be
mean,
rushed.
you're giving birth to your soul or a continuation thereof. You really are. You're claiming your soul. You're claiming your
Wow.
being. You're claiming who you are. And if you're in a rush, I'm not the right person. It's
Yeah.
fine. There's no judgment there. I can't do
Yes.
do
Yes.
my
It's your
magic. You know what I
process. Yeah.
mean?
Going deep. Yeah. I love that claiming your soul. Wonderful. That's amazing. So
Yeah, well, I
I
go
would,
very deep with my authors. It's not for everybody. It's really not.
well, I'm sure that's what creates the best stories. So, well, I
I think
encourage
so.
anyone listening, if they're interested, to reach out to Gail. And thank you so much for your time. And just any last maybe few words that you want to? kind of share last some
Mm.
parting gifts from your experience?
Well, if you're thinking of writing your memoir, start reading them. I just started reading Ketanji Brown Jackson,
Yes, yes.
the Supreme Court. It was funny because I'm starting now. I'm reading again a lot of memoirs because I just finished this one project. So I just finished Jacinda Ardern, who is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and I loved that book. Oh my God, it was so amazing.
Oh,
She
really?
was the
Okay, I
Prime
gotta read that.
Minister,
Yes.
but so down to earth, and she was like just a quintessential woman, like she,
Mm-hmm.
and it's called A Different Kind of Power. So that's what the whole book was, gorgeous. So after I finished that one, I was thinking of Katanji for a while, and I'm on this roll. I just started reading her book, and the prologue, I couldn't believe it, had me in tears. I mean, she worked with they called it a co-writer, not a co-author, but I mean, this Katanji Brown Jackson is obviously very, very intelligent. Anyway, the prologue, I took my breath away. The
Mm,
writing was just so exquisite, like what she talked about, what it was really like for her family growing up with black
mm-hmm.
skin. And
Mm.
it just was incredible. So read memoirs. If you're thinking about writing your own, you'll heal. I mean,
Yes,
it's a good thing
that's,
to do.
I'm gonna go out and get it. So yeah, I think that's such a great, yeah, if you're thinking of writing, then start with reading, right? So that's
Yeah.
amazing. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gail. It's been a pleasure. The conversation was great, and I think anybody that's listening would has benefited greatly. So I appreciate your time.
Oh, likewise. Thank you so much.